What's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to continue our coverage over the X-Men. Now, as you all know, we have wrapped up our coverage over Fatal Attractions, but now we must work our way up to the next crossover. Now, before we're able to do that, we have to cover some other stories that lead into that next crossover. Like, for example, Cable issues 6, 7, and 8. Now, this is called Fathers and Sons. And honestly, it's really important when it comes to the character of Cable because we are finally going to get that answer of who is actually the son of Cyclops and Madeline Pryor. Is it Stryfe or is it Cable? It has to be one of them, which means the other one has to be a clone. Now, technically, we had learned back in the Executioner song that Stryfe was supposedly the son of Cyclops and Madeline Pryor, and Cable was the clone. But this story arc right here says, that is actually wrong. And you see what I mean as we go through today's video. And so as we get into the opening pages of today's video, we do pick up with two characters, Tyler and also Zero. Now, I kind of want to sit down and talk about Tyler first. And here's the reason why. Okay, so Tyler is the son of Cable from the far future as well. But here's the catch. You see, for Tyler, he was on his father's side, but there was a point in time where you had Stryfe being able to take over the mind of Tyler, and of course turn Tyler against his father, Cable. Now, there was a point in time where you had Tyler actually try to hurt another team member of Cable, and so Cable had no choice but to go ahead and take his son down to save the life of that teammate of Cable. Now, here is the catch though. You see, after that, you didn't have Tyler go back in time. Now, when he did go back in time, he took up a new name, better known as Mr. Tolliver. Now, and back in the past, he was an arms dealer. And so when Cable came back in time as well, for Cable, he had no idea that Tyler was Tolliver. Instead, all he knew was he had to bring down Tolliver. And so that was his goal in the early days of X-Force Comics and also New Mutants as well. Now, at the end of the early days of X-Force Comics, going into the the Executioner song storyline, you had Cable being able to defeat Tolliver, but still not knowing that Tolliver was his son. Now, later on in Cable issue 5, Cable learned that Tolliver was his son Tyler, who also came back in time as well. Now let's shift our focus over to Zero. Now Zero is better known as an Atom. Now Atom are a special kind of robots. There's only two of them ever made in Marvel Comics, 0 and 11. Now we had talked about 11 before, but when it comes to Zero, he was the prototype for the Atom program. Now Atom stands for Ambient Energy Dampening Automated Peacekeeping Mechanism. Atom, or atoms, plural for the S part. Anyways, though, when it comes to Zero, he is the first one, right? And he was made by the Ascanis. Now, we have not officially talked about the Ascanis before just yet. As a matter of fact, we'll talk more about them down the road in this video, but also other videos in the later parts of our coverage over the X-Men. Now, when it comes to Atom, he was seriously damaged but founded by Stryfe. When Stryfe was defeated back in the Executioner song, he was then found by Tyler. Now, when it comes to Atom, his main goal is to, well, keep peace. Peacekeeping is part of his whole name. But the problem is right now, his system has been modified thanks to Tyler. Now, this is where we learn what Tyler wants to do in this story arc. You see, for Tyler, he's now realizing that he had his mind messed with by Stryfe. Now, when his mind was messed with by Stryfe, like I said earlier, he attacked a fellow team member of Cable's. Now, you did have Cable being able to stop Tyler as a way to save the life of his team member. But that's the problem right there for Tyler. He hates the idea that his father decided to save the life of his team member and not his own son. Now, for Zero, he tries his best to explain things to Tyler, like, dude, Cable had no choice. He knew your mind was messed with so bad, he had no choice to go ahead and take you down to save the life of his fellow team member. But for Tyler, it does not matter at all. And so for Tyler, he wants only one thing: to get revenge against the people who have ruined his life, starting off with Cable, but also another person as well. But now we have to jump over to Cable. Now, when we do, we see that Cable is standing over the grave of Madeline Pryor. Now, let's not forget, for Cable, he still believes that he is the clone of Stryfe, that Stryfe is the real son of Cyclops and also Madeline Pryor. Now, you do have Cable be confronted by Domino. Now, for Domino, she's kind of wondering why in the world was she called over here to the grave of Madeline Pryor. And so then you have Cable tell her, like, listen, I have something very important to tell you. The whole idea of Mr. Tolliver. You see, you have Cable tell Domino that Tolliver was his son Tyler, who had also came from the future as well. Now for Domino, she wants to know why in the world would his son come back in time to become an arms dealer. But before you have the two characters being able to talk to one another about that subject, they're then confronted by Mr. Sinister. Now, as we all know, when it comes to Sinister, he loves to play with Summer's DNA. But this is Sinister saying, listen, Cable, you still believe that Madeline Pryor is the mother to Stryfe and not you. Here's the thing, you're completely wrong. You are the real son of Cyclops and Madeline Pryor. Stryfe is your clone. But now we have to jump over to the school of Charles Xavier. Now, when we do, we pick up with a character known as Ascani. Now, when it comes to Ascani, she belongs to a clan called, well, Ascani as well. Now, for Ascanis, their main goal is to protect the Chosen One. And the Chosen One is Cable. That also means protecting his parents as well. Now, here's the thing. This is not our first time seeing Ascani, because back in X Factor Endgame, when you had Apocalypse give young Nathan the techno-organic virus, you had a different Ascani appear to take that Cable into the far future to save his life. Now, with that being said, in that far future, we had learned that apparently the Ascanis are a clan of people who are trying their best to fight against the forces of Apocalypse, who technically rules that future. Now, here's the thing. For Cable, he came back in time to make sure that future does not happen at all. But either way, for this Ascani, she came back in time to protect Cyclops and Jean Grey. And so that is why she's currently at the home of Charles Xavier to watch over those two characters. The parents of Stryfe are possibly Cable. But getting back over to Cable, Domino, and also Mr. Sinister, you have Sinister telling Cable that he was the one who had created Madeline Pryor, the clone of Jean Grey. And the reason why, because the genetics of Cyclops and Jean Grey would produce a very powerful child. And so with Madeline being a clone of Jean Grey and still getting with Cyclops, they could still produce a powerful child. Now, with all that being said, you didn't have Domino wondering what went wrong. Like, yay, you created Madeline Pryor. That's great. But what went wrong when it came to Stryfe? Now, you had Sinister say, hey, listen, I did not create him. I only created her. And that is it. Somebody else made him. But you didn't have Sinister say, hey, by the way, Cable, yeah, you are the son of Cyclops and Madeline Pryor. But there is one more thing I have to say to you. Do not let time take control of your life. You need to learn how to master time yourself. And then right after saying that, and before he disappears, he plays with the mind of Cable. The reason why, to release a powerful person back out into the world, and that person would be Stryfe. Sinister was able to put the mind of Stryfe into the body of Cable. And the question is right now, how was he able to do that? Because like I said, back in the Executioner song, at the end of that crossover, we were left to believe that Cable and Stryfe had both officially died. Now, Cable came back out of nowhere, but not Stryfe. And so now it seems like Sinister was able to bring Stryfe back to life, but also giving him the ability to take over the body of Cable. Now, for the Ascani, she realized that Stryfe has returned, and she knows that she has to protect Cyclops and Jean Grey. The problem is when she tries to go into the home of Cyclops and Jean Grey, well, that is when she's stopped by Tyler and Zero. Now, she's very confused on why in the world Tyler has an Atom robot with him, but you had Tyler say, hey, listen, don't worry about that right now. Right now, I need you to come with me because you're very important for me to learn everything I need to know about my father. And so just like that, bam, they disappeared. And so now Jean Grey and Cyclops are somewhat left defenseless. Well, not really, because you didn't have Jean Grey realize that she felt some kind of cry out there, a psychic cry out there in the world. And she realized that kind of cry came from one person. And she knows who's now back in their time once again. And that would be good old Stryfe. So as we get into Cable issue number 7, we do pick up with Tyler once again. Now the Ascani, she's now a prisoner of Tyler. Now we also learn here that it was Tyler who kind of told Sinister to go find Cable to help release Stryfe in the mind of Cable. And the reason why, because for Tyler, he wants to go ahead and kill off Stryfe and Cable in one good swoop. But we also see the reason why he had kidnapped or taking the Ascani as a hostage is to learn the entire history of Cable in a very short period of time. Now, for the Ascani, with her now being a prisoner, technically, she has no choice here. She has to go ahead and show him what he wants to know about his father. But getting back over to Stryfe, who's now in the body of Cable, you didn't have Stryfe, go back over to Camp Verde. Now, Camp Verde is the base for X-Force. And so while you have Stryfe in the room of Cable, cutting off his or shaving off his goatee, you didn't have Siren walk into the room. Now, when it comes to the earlier parts of our coverage over X-Force and Cable comics, we kind of saw in the possibility that Siren and Cable could possibly get together. And she also realized there's something off with Cable, but she has no idea what it is. Now for Stryfe, he does not remember her name at all, but he does know that she must be somebody close to Cable in a more romantic kind of way. Either way, you have Stryfe, use his powers in the mind of Siren to knock her out. And not just her, he also knocks out Richter as well. Now, let's not forget, when it comes to Richter, for a long time, he believed that Cable was the one who had killed off his father because he saw the face of Stryfe. And because Stryfe and Cable had the same face, he believed it was Cable the entire time who had killed off his father, not knowing it was actually Stryfe. Now, he did find out later on, but at the same time, he still does not believe Cable at all. But he heard Siren scream. And so you have Richter try to confront Cable, who's right now being possessed by Stryfe. Either way, you have Stryfe go ahead and knock out Richter as well and leaves Camp Verde behind. Now let's go ahead and transition back over to Jean Grey and Cyclops, because for Jean Grey, let's not forget that she is not really the mother of Cable. Her clone was, Madeline Pryor, but when it came to X-Men Inferno, for Jean Grey, she had absorbed the mind of Madeline Pryor. So she has all the different kinds of memories that Madeline had when she was being a mother to baby Nathan. And so for Jean Grey, as she does watch old home videos of Madeline and also Nathan and Scott Summers as well, she remembers those things, but again, it was not really her. It's completely messed up. Now you have Cyclops walk into the room, and he's kind of hurt as well because he hates the idea that he had a son and he had no choice but to go ahead and give his son up. But also, let's not forget, for Cyclops and Jean Grey, they still believe that Stryfe is their son, a crazy mutant from the future. Now, for Cyclops and Jean Grey, they're also kind of wondering in the possibility if they can have children. Now, you have Charles walk into the room and say, yes, you should still have the ability to have children because even though you are heroes, you're kind of like policemen and firemen, and they have families as well. But for Cyclops, he's afraid of the idea of producing another child that could most likely become Stryfe once again. But then you have Domino walk into the room. She said, "You're wrong. Stryfe is not your son. Cable is your son." But now we have to jump back over to Tyler. Now you have Tyler using the Ascani as a way to learn the entire origin of his father. Now we do pick up at the moment where you have Cyclops having no choice but to go ahead and give up baby Nathan over to an Ascani. Now that Ascani did take Cable into the far future, but let's not forget that he was infected with the techno-organic virus given to him by Apocalypse. And so when young baby Nathan arrived in the future, he was then confronted by Mother Ascani, the person in charge of the entire clan. But she didn't realize that they were too late going back in time to save young Cable because now he is infected with the techno-organic virus. And we also learn in this future that Apocalypse rules the future. And so she was hoping to bring young Cable here as a way to bring down Apocalypse to free their world. But now, unfortunately, the young baby Nathan is fighting for his life, fighting against the techno-organic virus. Now, we also kind of find out that they believed that young Nathan was going to die right then and there. And they said, we have no choice. We have to go ahead and clone him and use the clone as a way to bring down Apocalypse. But getting back over to Cyclops, Jean Grey, Charles Xavier, and also Domino, they head over to Camp Verde because for Domino, she knows that for Cable, if he wants to go after somebody, he's going to need some weapons first. And the best place to get weapons is the base of X-Force, Camp Verde. Except when they do arrive at Camp Verde, they find both Richter and Siren knocked out. Now, Charles was able to heal their minds, but after doing that, you did have Domino find a video. Now, the way the video is being told to us is kind of like he left this video just in case he has died. It is kind of like, hey, if I'm gone, play this video, and here's my final message. Now, for Charles Xavier, he kind of believes in the possibility that there were moments in the past where Stryfe was able to take over the mind of Cable, meaning that there has been times where Stryfe has been in the mind of Cable, but just waiting for the right moment to take over the body of Cable. Now, with all that being said, you did have our heroes realize if they're able to capture Cable, who's right now being possessed by Stryfe, they could also find the cure for the legacy virus. And remember, that virus right now is killing off mutants left and right across the board. And so their main goal for the last few months or a year now has been trying to find the cure for the legacy virus. And right now, it does seem like their best chance is to get a hold of the body of Cable. Now, the ending of the second chapter is really more of Stryfe being able to sneak his way into the base of Tyler. Now, for Tyler, he's still holding on to the Ascani as a hostage. But then out of nowhere, you didn't have her say, someone else is here in the base right now. And she's like, oh my God, it's him. But right after realizing who it is, you have Stryfe, again, who's right now using the body of Cable, destroy the body of the Ascani. And once Tyler turns around, he realized that his base is now being attacked by, well, his father, but his father who's right now being controlled by Stryfe. Now, as we get into the final chapter, we kind of learn a tad bit more about Stryfe here. And the reason why I'm saying that, because remember, when it came to the end of the Executioner song, we saw Cable and also Stryfe be destroyed by the time vortex. Now, we learn here that apparently Cable was able to survive and come out of it. But Stryfe's body was destroyed, but his mind stayed alive. His mind was able to transfer over to the body of Cable. Now, that'll be explained a tad bit more here in a moment, but for Stryfe, This is where he finds out that he is the clone of Cable, that in reality, he was never the son of Cyclops and Madeline Pryor. It was Cable, and he cannot accept the fact that he is the clone. Now, we also kind of find out the Ascani is still alive only for like two more pages here, because you didn't have Stryfe say like, listen, I don't know why you're here because your entire clan, your sisterhood has been killed off. But she says, if I'm still here right now, that means that my clan is still alive, which means that clan was able to send me back in time to protect Cyclops and Jean Grey. And oh, by the way, I had warned them that you have returned. And so because of that right there, we kind of find out that it was not Stryfe's scream or his powerful mind reaching out to Jean Grey. It was the Ascani reaching out to Jean Grey, telling her like, hey, listen, Stryfe is back and you need to be on your A game. Now for Stryfe, he realized that Cyclops and Jean Grey now know that he is back. That means his plans are going to fall apart. And so with them being so upset, he kills off the Ascani, but her spirit and body or her energy goes over to the mind of Tyler. And so you have Tyler say, it's so wild and crazy that you still don't believe the fact that you are the clone of Cable. But you know what? Our minds were connected, my mind to hers. And so when she died, her mind came to my body, which means now I'm able to show you everything you need to know about the actual truth of Cable and you. But now we jump over to the X-Men, who are now having a conversation with Zero. Now, this is Zero explaining everything to the X-Men like, listen, the reason why Stryfe is back because what happened at the end of the Executioner song. Let me explain, y'all. So as we all know, the Time Vortex had destroyed, or we were left to believe had destroyed both Cable and Stryfe. We kind of find out that Cable has survived, but he was sent into the far future where you had a group of scientists or doctors being able to repair the body of Cable. Now, when it came to Stryfe, his body was completely destroyed, but his mind survived, and his mind was able to attach to the body of Cable. But once doing that, his mind was pushed in the back to allow Cable to continue to control his body. But then, of course, you had Sinister come in and release the mind of Stryfe to allow Stryfe to take over the body of Cable. Now, with all that being said, the only reason why Sinister got involved because Tyler called Sinister to allow Stryfe to take over the body of Cable. So that when he kills off Cable, he's also killing off Stryfe as well. Now, for the X-Men, they once again get confirmation that yes, Cable is the son of Cyclops and Madeline Pryor. And you also had Jean Grey realize it was the Ascani who had reached out to her to warn her that Stryfe has returned. But now we're able to transition back over to Stryfe. Now for Stryfe, it's him kind of learning everything that happened to him and why he is the clone of good old Cable. Because right after you had the Ascani being able to clone Cable and to make Stryfe, Apocalypse forces attacked their base. And they were only able to grab Cable. They were not able or fast enough to grab Stryfe as well. And so you had some folks stay behind and try their best to grab Stryfe, but they were killed off. And so then you had Apocalypse being able to get Stryfe, not knowing that he has the clone of the baby that he was actually looking for. And so this is the moment where you as Stryfe realize that yes, my dude, you are the clone of Cable. You are not the original one at all. Now, we get into the idea of the X-Men arriving just in time to fight against Stryfe. Now, this whole entire section is really more of different people trying to show Stryfe that he is a failure. Now, what I mean by that actual statement is really more him kind of realizing that he has let down the actual idea of being a Summer. Because if you look at the other Summers like Cyclops, Havoc, and even also Cable, they had continued on to be a force of good. He's the only one in the bloodline who unfortunately turned to the side of evil. And so it's them begging him, listen, if you are a Summer, you should try to be good just like us. And so for Stryfe, he kind of realized that maybe they are right. But he also realized that he can still have the last laugh. Because again, he has the cure to the legacy virus. And so when you have Stryfe finally let go of the body of Cable, he also takes with him the cure to the legacy virus. But now it's time for us to talk about the ending. And honestly, the ending is kind of sad. That last page right there, because you didn't have Cable being able to finally introduce himself over to Charles Xavier. But after doing that, well, hold on quick. I want to say that this is the first time you have these two characters meeting in person and being able to talk to one another in the X-Men timeline. Anyways, when it comes to Cyclops, he wants to have that conversation with his son. He's all like, listen, you're my son. Like, we should talk about the fact that you're my child that I sent in the future to save your life. But for Cable, he does not want to talk at all. But Cyclops does beg to just have one conversation with his son. And you have Cable say, fine. But I only want to talk about one thing. And that is, can you tell me more about my mother? And the book ends on that note right there. And this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.